This is the Startup Social Podcast, your inside look at the Austin startup world. We get real with local founders and business owners who share their toughest challenges and biggest wins.
All right, I'm Daniel Griggs. We're back on the Startup Social Podcast. Today we got the guest Jordan Smothermon. Smothermon. Now this is going to be the most interesting but shortest intro you heard. The rightful heir to the throne. Can you explain it for us?
Well, I was just really busting Samantha's chops. That's it. She was just like, well, how do you want to be introduced? And I just, I don't know.
I like that though. It fits your personality. So I'll give a little bit more into Jordan from what I know,
okay.
And then I'll let you talk more about yourself. I know Jordan is the co-founder.
Just an
owner
owner
of Atomic Athlete here based in Austin. We did build out his website. Y'all actually helped us create a name within ATX Web Designs.
Oh, really?
Anytime we have a website that's extremely complex and we kind of overshot it, we call it an Atomic Athlete website. So here's the story, because I'm transparent on these, right? So we built out Atomic Athlete's website. We moved it, kept it in WordPress. It was on the same thing. There was a lot of shit that, to be honest, y'all didn't know, and we couldn't really find out until we got into the weeds of it.
That's right.
Yeah, but at the same time, we worked everything through when we worked with them to make sure it got where it needed to be. But it was an atomic type of project, is what we call them now. Atomic project.
Yeah. Both big and small, right?
Yeah.
The scale was both big and small. The interesting thing about our website, and really I think the biggest disadvantage that you guys had was actually what you were working with, what the site was before you guys took it over, because you guys were working from a huge disadvantage with the way that the site worked before, just because of our kind of naivety with working with websites and kind of allowing ourselves to be raked over the coals a little bit by developers in the past. Mm-hmm. And so you guys were already starting, you guys were like starting at the 2-yard line, right? Yeah. And it's not like we were even giving you like starting from the 20 or anything like that. You were
one to touchback.
Yeah, exactly. Right, yeah.
But it's all good. So Atomic Athlete, I want to dive into Atomic Athlete because this is what I will say. It's intense when I go to anything with Atomic Athlete, but I like it from the website. So if I showed someone, so say for instance, we work with someone that wants us to build a website, and there's like, what's some website y'all built based on this? And we'll show them like the homepage of Atomic Athlete, and I'm like, brace yourself what you're about to see when you first come to it. And there's like a lady, she's trying to get up, she has a bag over her head, she has a straight look on her face, but I love it though. But tell us more about. First, more about Jordan yourself, and then everything about Atomic Athletes you can.
So I'm a small town Texas boy. I grew up in this little town called Panhandle, Texas. It's in the Panhandle. Yeah. All right. Not a very creative people up there. All right. We named the town
it's called
after the
Panhandle.
region. Yes. Yeah.
The
region Panhandle, the Panhandle of Texas, and the town is called Panhandle as well. After that, I went into the military. I served in the Navy for 6 years. I was a nuclear operator on a submarine. And from there, I came to UT. That's what brought me to Austin in 2005. And then I went to UT from 2006 to 2009. After that, I moved to Houston. I was in Teach for America for a couple years. Then I moved up to Wyoming, and that's when I started my coaching career. And I was up there from 2012 to 2015, and then I moved back here and became a part of Atomic Athlete. So since then, I've been an owner of Atomic. Atomic was started by a guy named Jake Sines, my business partner, and Jake, a guy named Todd Moore, and I all own it now. And around 2015, 2016 is whenever we started to take a closer look at the website. They had a website, but it was really rudimentary. That was kind of my first project to take over. And then I think like 2016, was it May of 2016 or 2017 when we came to you guys? Anyway, somewhere around there, 16, 17, we came to you guys to build out a new site. And that was a really great decision. One of the best decisions that we've made actually in the last couple of years. to have that done and to have you guys do it because you're so thorough. And despite all of the challenges, you guys had a lot of integrity in like making sure that you delivered a really, really good product, which you did. And so, and Atomic is, we're a training facility. We have coaches. We don't have trainers, right? The difference between a coach and a trainer is that a trainer is trying to retain clientele, but a coach is trying to improve performance. And so we really focus on improving the performance of our athletes, but we train all kinds. I mean, we have really high level athletes. We have Olympic level athletes, but we also have, your mid-40s soccer mom, you know, and oftentimes they train a lot harder than those high level athletes.
If you get down.
That's right. Yeah. And so, we actually just opened our second facility. So our HQ is down south, just north of Bannister Lane. And then our new location is actually up north, right off of Beck Circle. Yeah. And we call that the Atomic Outpost. It's more of an open gym model. It's awesome. It's really, really cool. Yeah. So between the website, the HQ, and Outpost, we're pretty busy at this point.
So how did y'all come up with the whole Atomic, I don't want to just say brand, but the concept with everything I do, right? So you're saying like, we don't have trainers, we have coaches. Like, how did you come up with the concept of how you train and the different things that y'all do? Where did that kind of begin? Is it kind of because the three horsemen came together and y'all formed it that way?
Right. We had always been, we've been lifelong athletes, right? Like yourself. And over the course of training, over your lifetime of training, you kind of learn what is effective and what is ineffective, what looks good and then what works good. Yeah. And we basically had some good ideas about how to train, and we wanted to challenge ourselves to see if we could bring effective world-class training to people in a way that was systemized rather than a way that was random. Because you have to understand, at the time, 2009, whenever we started Atomic Athlete, there was a really big push, and CrossFit was still like in its peak growth at that point. And so there's a big growth and push for functional fitness, in air quotes. Part of the offshoot of this functional fitness was this idea that in order for it to be functional, it had to be high intensity and random. Yeah. Yet this idea flew in the face of what we knew to be true, both in the scientific community, but also in our own experience. So we decided that we were going to go another way. Rather than only high intensity and rather than random, we were going to be really purposeful, and we were going to be very comprehensive. So CrossFit has been great for fitness in general because it has introduced more people to the barbell probably than any other thing, right? Yeah. It's like Jim Ryan in running. Like it's the same thing with like CrossFit and the barbell. Yeah. And so CrossFit is a net positive for us. Most of our athletes actually are former CrossFit athletes. But the issue that we have with the CrossFit paradigm is the randomness and sort of the reliance on high intensity only. So if you take the randomness aspect, and what they like to say is that, life is random, life throws random stuff at you. And yet, while there may be a seed of truth in that, it's also true that you don't teach a third grader complex algebra, right? You start and you progress up, right? You got to teach them to add and subtract. And then you can teach them to multiply, because if they understand the concept of addition, they can understand that multiplication is just repeated addition, right? It's addition time and time again. That's what we call it, times. So you had to build the student up, right?
You just educated the hell out of me on that too. Just to know. I was like, okay, it does make sense.
So we decided to take that tack where you're gonna, just like you progress a student up, we're gonna progress the athlete up, and everything has to be really purposeful. You're not gonna, again, to use education as an analogy. I was a teacher, so I rely on these things a lot. To use education as an analogy, you're not gonna bring your student in one day and teach them reading, and then the next day you're going to teach them math, and then the next day you're going to teach them history, and then the next day you're going to teach them math again, but that math isn't going to have anything to do with the math before. That sort of randomness is not how people learn, right? You have to build on these concepts in order to gain understanding. But it's not even about gaining understanding, it's about gaining mastery, right? And so that idea is really important to us. We want our athletes to master the things that are like our style of training and training in general. What comes with that is a level of confidence and a level of stick-to-itiveness and mental fitness that is really hard to replace through randomness or only high intensity. And so that was really a lot of the starting inspiration behind the idea of Atomic Athlete. Of course, let me also say, we have fucked so many things up along the way. We have made so many mistakes. We have done so many stupid things with our training. But, that's part of the process. And we have learned and iterated because of that. And now, we're always learning. We're always working to constantly improve. And so, Atomic Athlete in 2019 is very different than Atomic Athlete in 2018 or 2017 because we're always learning and improving and moving forward.
So with that, is that something that, because with the type of workouts and things that y'all have, because of course when we developed out the site and I was seeing some of the workouts and things that y'all have, is it based on, is a lot of the business based on you all's personality? Because all y'all are military, right? I know you and Jake are, no?
Jake and I are, Todd is.
Todd is, okay. Is anything based kind of like on a military mindset per se? Not necessarily like what you do physical, a military mindset.
I think that some of the required discipline and the sort of regimentation of it is borrows a lot from the military mindset. And also we have a lot of our online athletes and local athletes are former military or currently military. We have a number of guys that are SF right now who follow our training online, who we took them all the way through the whole like their selection, Q course, everything. Like we brought them. They started with us locally, then they joined, and then they went all the way through. And so the military and armed services have had a lot of impact, I would say, on us just because we work with them day in and day out. We of course now we have a lot of LEOs and first responders that train with us as well.
Nice.
And all of that kind of, I mean, the military and LEO, it is different in a lot of respects, but it's very similar in a lot of respects as well. So that I would say that it is influenced by it, even though it's a minority of the people that we work with. I mean, most of the people we work with are just, you're kind of like work-a-day athletes. They are not, they're not, they have no prior military experience or anything like that. I would say it's like 80-20 between non-military and military. So 20% is still substantial. Don't get me wrong. 20% of your clientele, that's pretty substantial. But at the same time, it's far from the majority.
Yeah. So what were you doing before? I know you're in the military.
Yep.
What did you do before Atomic Athlete? I guess you could say before you got joined with the Atomic Athlete and I guess when you left Austin. Well, you were in the military out of high school?
Yes, right out of high school.
And then in Austin, and then Houston, right? And then back to Austin?
So I went to the military, and in the military I was stationed I went to some schools in South Carolina and New York, and then I was stationed on my submarine in Hawaii. And then after I got out of the military, I came to Austin and went to school.
Okay. After
Austin, I went to Houston. I was in Teach for America. So I taught at Houston Public Schools. I taught 4th grade at this great school called Frost Elementary. Nice. Shout out to the Jaguars. And it was a really great experience. It was amazing there, actually. And being a teacher is really cool. I love that job. And after that, I went to Wyoming. And Wyoming is whenever I started to coach.
Okay.
And that the reason why that was sort of the pattern was because after I got out of the military and went to UT, I raced bikes at UT, and I also raced for a local team here in Austin. And through the course of racing, I became pretty high level.
Mm-hmm.
There are 5 categories, Cat 5 being like beginner, and then 4, 3, 2, and 1. And so like pros, 1s and 2s race together. Uh-huh. And so I was a Cat 2 racer. So I was racing at the highest level for any sort of race that you would see like statewide.
How intense was training for that?
Oh, I mean, it was a job, man. I mean, I went to school, I worked, and I trained. That was my entire life, right?
I've heard it's pretty intense.
It's so intense. Like I would have like 25, 26 hour weeks where I'm like on the bike, pedaling, training for 26 hours in that week, right? So you're talking about long weeks of training. Of course, my shortest was like 7, but then it would go up to like, that 25, 26. That was like my peak time on the bike. So
I can't even stay focused that long.
I mean,
but I guess it depends on the, like, were you when you were training for that, were you going like the same type of trails or areas, or was it different? Like, were you with a group of people? How was the training for it?
A vast majority of it, 90 to 95% was solo. So it's just me
Really?
and a bike on the road. Yeah, I did road cycling. I didn't ride on I didn't do like mountain or anything like that. It was vast majority was just solo, because it's a highly individual sport. Like you have your training numbers based on your performance, and so even if like you and I are similar ability, your training numbers are going to look different than mine, which means that it's going to be very hard for us to ride together, because we're going to be riding at different speeds. So I did do some group training for sure, and I raced a lot. I mean, I raced multiple times a week most of the time, but my training was solo, and it's super intense. I mean, between school, work, I had a part-time job, and then riding. That's like 3 jobs, right?
Yeah,
it's like
that's a lot.
Yeah, so so working through that and getting to that high level and gaining a lot of knowledge along the way was what sort of brought me to Atomic. That's how I met Jake and Todd, and then also that's how I met the guy that I worked with up in Wyoming named Rob Shaw, and he has a company called Mountain Tactical Institute now. And so that was a trajectory, and it was all because of my cycling history.
Yeah. So with Atomic Athlete, what do you feel like some of the biggest challenges or ups and downs per se throughout the course of continuing to build this really community of athletes that you work with?
Yeah. Man. So one of the tough things is culture. Culture is the hardest thing to build, and it's the easiest thing to lose.
True.
And you want to have a really welcoming, but you want a welcoming culture, but you want one that also people feel like they're going to be pushed.
Yeah.
And that is hard. It can't be completely ensconced in the idea of competition. You want there to be an inherent sense of competition, but the training sessions should not be competitions. Training is not competing. Training is not assessing, right? If you assess yourself, that is a different thing than training. And so there has to be, while it can't be like this constant push to compete, there needs to be an inherent sense of competition. And really, any properly motivated athlete is naturally going to have that, because they're going to want to be better. So you have to have a welcoming culture, but one that encourages a little bit of challenge. You want people to know that they're going to come in and have a good crew to train with.
Yeah.
That was another big reason why we started Atomic, because we had a really good crew, and we were like, man, we want everybody to have this really cool crew to train with. And so we wanted to build this really cool community of people.
Makes you want to train when you got a community of like-minded people, and you can push one another. Like you say, the competing part, but at the same time, you're having fun while you're competing.
Yeah. And all the while, we also wanted to we wanted to have a sense that when the training is primary, okay, and that the discipline is primary, so that we can operate. One of the hardest things to explain, and it's really the most challenging things to get new athletes to buy into, is the idea that we are going to train at low level of intensity, and we're also going to train at high levels of intensity, and having them understand that it's okay to train easy.
Yeah.
And really what we like to say is that your training should feel too easy and too hard. Like that's if you are between those two, you're really good. If your training always feels like kind of hard, that's how you hit a plateau.
I had to learn that like a year ago.
Yeah.
I've been doing sports and stuff my entire life basically. And I had to learn it like a year ago.
And so that is so important. I mean, whenever I started cycling, I hired a coach named Stefan Roth, and he was amazing. And he really taught me. He doesn't know the impact that he had on me as an athlete, you know, but he was my coach, and he would, whenever I first hired him, he would program like these 6-hour sessions at like 200 watts, which is pretty low power output on a bike. And I would be emailing him like, Stefan, why am I doing all of this time? It is really low intensity. And he would be like, you know, kind of like, just trust me, but this is why. And he would send me the reasoning behind it, like what it's doing inside it, what it's doing at the cellular level whenever I was doing that. And so, of course, like I was paying him, I trusted him. I was a poor student at the time. Like, I'm putting this money out there, I'm going to follow it to a T. So I followed it, and the results were, you know, the proof is in the pudding. Yeah. So the results showed for themselves, and it was really an amazing learning experience. And so I wanted to bring that to the gym athlete, because again, 2009. Yes, this is the time. CrossFit started in 2005 in Santa Cruz, right? Yeah. And so this is the time when it was really growing huge, and CrossFit classes were popping up all over the place, and it was all about, you know, heavy overhead snatch, going as hard as you can. But again, we knew that wasn't the answer, right? We knew that you're only training a certain way, and what you have to understand is intensity determines the type of adaptation that you get. Yeah. And volume determines how much of that adaptation you get. So, but volume is really king. The more training you can do, then eventually that's the more quality of training, or the more intensity you're going to be able to train at. And so these things tied together, but first you had to build that wide base. Yeah. We like to say you had to build the number of matches in your matchbook, right? Because if you have 10 matches in your matchbook and I have 20, you're going to burn out your 10, right? And you're not going to have any matches left, right? So what are you going to burn at that point? And I still have 10. Right, so that is going to be a huge determinant of success.
Do you keep yours? You keep your workouts intense, or do you keep it lower? How do you balance yours out?
I'm learning the same thing because I did CrossFit and I burned out. Yeah, I was stressed at work, and the stress at work, in addition to the stress of the always intense with the AMRAP, I'm gonna give it 100%. Yeah, that's right. And I got double. It wasn't a relief to me. Yep. I had to switch. I had to leave. Yeah. I left.
Samantha Sower, she was saying, how intense was your workout last time? They got you
I'm doing Orange Theory. CrossFit is not for me. I mean, it's basically to build like your, what's it called?
I mean,
I've never done it.
Stressed out, like that's like give it 100%.
I've never done it before, but what I've seen been done, it is intense all the time. But it was the concept was when you talk, because we were talking about culture. Yeah. One thing that they've done the greatest thing of is create a culture. They have. They have done an extremely good job for creating a culture, and then it draws people in. Yep. Like for me, because every time I've always worked out based on sports. I've never worked out based on I want to work out to have a bigger chest or bigger arms or something like that. If I did have anything in mind, it was like I'm doing it for sports. And I have to get myself out of this mindset even till today. All of my workouts used to be intense because I was like, if I don't, I'm going to lose something. Even if I was just thinking about maintaining, I was like, if I don't go run this 6 miles, like I'm thinking about boxing. If I don't go run 6 miles today, then I'm going to lose some form of conditioning. But I just ran 6 miles 3 days in a row. You know what I mean? It's just like I can go hit the swimming pool and still get something that's different, but it's not going to be intense on that part of my body per se. Yeah. So that mindset right there is hard, even for not even as a sports athlete, but even as a regular person, because you're thinking, I got to go hard in the gym every day to meet whatever goal it is that you have. Yeah. So that is big.
Yeah, and so like in creating that culture and creating that, like, how do we get people to understand that their training has to kind of follow like a sine wave.
Yeah.
How do we get them to actually buy into that? That's tough. But you have to rely on and kind of lean on your veteran athletes who have bought into it, and they have seen huge gains over the course of their career in Atomic. You have to kind of rely on them. And also other things like we send out emails every single week.
I love y'all's emails.
You get them?
I stay subscribed to them just because I like reading them.
They're a lot of fun to write.
They are.
We try to make them funny because there's so many of them. Like the whole email newsletter is a staid practice at this point, right?
Yeah.
So we try to make them fun.
I like them. I do. I like them.
So does that mean the frequency is different? Because you may go to CrossFit 2 times a week, so you kind of like, I guess in their mind, like we gotta go hard because you may come 2 times.
Yeah.
Is your model? Does that mean y'all's business model is a little different in terms of you want them more so we can do more days?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the way that we structure our week is we have 3 primary sessions and then 2 optional sessions. So ideally, we want people to do those 3 primary sessions. And our broader model of programming is we program by macro cycles. So we'll program like a month, 2 months, or 3 months at a time. Okay, what we'll focus on the fitness attributes that we want to develop over that course of time. Those become our primary fitness attributes. We have 10 fitness attributes that we like to train overall, and so we will bucket a percentage of those towards our primary sessions, and then we'll bucket the others. Not necessarily all of them. We're not always training all fitness attributes, but we'll bucket others towards our optional sessions. And the idea of the optional session is to maintain the other fitness attributes. So if an athlete is going to come like 2 or 3 times a week, they're going to do only our primary sessions. If they're going to come 4 or more, then they're going to do those optional sessions. Now, the intention behind those optional sessions is also, and also oftentimes the primary sessions, is to allow people to train at that sort of volume and frequency without being burnt out. So what does that require? That requires that you have a lower intensity of training that allows you to get in the larger amount of volume. And again, volume determines how much of the adaptation that you're going to get, right? And so if we're training at a certain intensity, at the maximum volume that our people can handle, then they're going to get the maximal adaptation for that intensity.
It makes sense.
Okay?
Yeah. I like the way you broke that down. I got to keep that stuff in my mind myself. I do, especially because, go ahead.
Yeah, no, because a lot of people, like, they think that going to the gym every day, like, it's the thing to do.
Yeah.
Like, you're just burning yourself out.
But
I think he's saying it depends on what you're doing.
He's putting a scientific approach to like an approach to it that's like it's been proven, because a lot of people, a lot of times, it's regardless of what kind of way it is that you're training or working, whether you're training for something, for performance, or whatever goal it is that you want to meet. When you put a scientific approach to it like that, which is really different, because nowadays it's really no matter what it is. I mean, we can talk about entrepreneurship or working out. Everybody thinks you just have to be like, it has to go hard all the time.
Grind.
Yeah. And so, but there's an understanding to it, like you have to have, I hate to use the word balance, but there has to be balance with it to get the optimum results out of it.
Yeah.
So I like the approach. Yeah.
Consistency beats intensity. Consistent.
Well, so you gotta. What I like to say is consistency is like pregnancy. You either are or you are not. Right? There is no middle ground. Consistency, like discipline and consistency, are the 2 primary drivers of improvement in really whatever you're going to do. Discipline is king, and so and then if you are disciplined, then you will most likely be consistent, and then that consistency is going to give you returns. The key is to keep up the motivation and the discipline whenever those big returns stop coming. And then you start to only see marginal returns, right? You see this in business. This is the law of diminishing returns, right? But the key is to always be making those 1% to 2% gains. Yeah. Because obviously the way that percentages scale, that 1% today, if you're making 1% like year over year, right? Then you're talking about like 10, 20, 30%. And also that 1% in 5 years would be like 20% today. Yeah. Right? Because of the way that they're constantly scaling. Percentages are always going to scale on the compound of every previous percentage. And so consistency in training, consistency in the grind, all of that is really important. What you have to understand as an individual, whether or not it's business related or physical fitness related, is that you cannot go at your maximum intensity and be consistent all the time. You have to understand that your body does not know the difference between work stress and training stress, like you were saying, Chris.
True.
Your body just knows stress. And so if you're having a stressful time at work, a stressful time in your personal life, and a stressful time at the gym, or your gym training is only really high intensity, your body's going to be like, bro, I'm smoked. And then your endocrine system and your central nervous system, they're going to be overtaxed. Now, whenever we talk about overtraining, we can talk about overtraining like whenever people get burned out at work, or we talk about overtraining with actual training. Overtraining is not a muscular thing. Overtraining is the way that we understand overtraining right now. Okay, the science is in on a lot of physical fitness and a lot of the science behind how our bodies develop. But overtraining is one of those things that there are still a lot of variables and they haven't really pinpointed. But the theory is that your endocrine system, this system which regulates the release of your hormones throughout your body, and your central nervous system, you have two sides of your central nervous system. You have a gas pedal called your sympathetic nervous system, and then you have a brake pedal called your parasympathetic nervous system. But those two things can become tired. And that means that your hormone regulation is going to fluctuate heavily, and that's going to be messed up. This is why oftentimes you see a big change in your energy level whenever you start to become overtrained. And then on the central nervous system side, we have evolved in a really smart way. Our sympathetic nervous system, the gas pedal, can completely overpower the parasympathetic nervous system, the ability for your body to slow down and take a break. This is crucial for our survival, because if you're running from like danger for days on end, you don't want your body to be like, hey, you got to take a break, right? Like you may be running for danger.
Automatically shut down.
Yeah, I mean, if you got a tiger hunting you for like 2 days and you're in the bush, like you gotta move, man. You gotta move.
Yeah.
Like you don't have time to rest. And it may be days at a time that you got to keep moving. So our central nervous system has evolved to have a stronger sympathetic side than parasympathetic side. But imagine a car which only had a gas pedal. Eventually, it's going to crash.
Yeah.
And so you have to, and you're not going to like when that happens. So the parasympathetic nervous system, whenever you become overtrained, because if you're training too hard, your body's not going to be able to apply the brake pedal. And so what happens oftentimes with overtraining is you'll be smoked. You'll have no energy all day.
Yeah.
And then whenever you go to lay your head down, you'll just lay there awake. Like I call it runaway brain.
Damn, I felt this before.
See? Okay. So that could be an indication that you're starting to be overtrained.
Yeah.
Right? If you have low energy all day and then you can't sleep at night, now we start to see the interplay between an overtaxed endocrine system and an overtaxed central nervous system. And this is why it is so important to train at multiple intensities. I mean, this is all come from your question about culture, but
no, that's good. Well, this is part of this is part of y'all's culture. Like everything that you're mentioning right now is part of like understanding the way that y'all train and the things that you do for the clients that y'all have.
Yeah, what we are doing right now is getting very deep underneath the hood of Atomic. You know, like if you're gonna buy a Tesla, right? You just want to look at how sweet the Tesla is, right? Like that's what Elon Musk wants you to see. Like he wants you to have that, like, oh my God, this is amazing. But if you look at the software and the internal engineering behind what makes a Tesla so amazing, then I mean you could become overwhelmed. But if you understand even a percentage of it, like you can really appreciate like, wow, this is an amazing thing. So we are getting deep underneath the hood of what goes into Atomic programming and training design. And I do think it's important to talk about this, at least to some degree, because it's if you walk by our gym, you could look in and see people moving barbells, see people running, see people jumping, and you may think that's CrossFit.
Yeah. And
you would not be at fault for thinking that, because CrossFit did not invent the front squat. They did not invent the clean. They did not invent the AMRAP. They didn't do any of those things, right? they helped to put them together, but even they did not invent that. That idea has been around for a very long time. I was doing that. And a lot, I'm sure you were, right? Boxing, right, and everything. You're gonna do some high intensity work. You're gonna do some low intensity bag, or you're gonna mix it up, right? Your coach was doing that far before for you. He was doing that for you far before CrossFit ever came around. He was doing it in the mode of boxing, right? Mm-hmm. But really, what they did so well was create the community aspect of things.
We're talking about like the burnout part of like everything that you explained, basically the gas pedal and the brake. We're talking about it we're kind of mentioning it from a physical aspect. Have you felt that from an entrepreneurial aspect? I've burnt out every year around this time. And I made a purpose, like I was like, this year I can't, I have to switch something up. And it literally, I didn't think about it from the way that you just put it, but I did in a general way, which was like, I can't just keep going hard every single day, every single month. Like, I have to break this up in phases. And sometimes it's not a matter of that I'm getting off the gas pedal, but I have to figure out ways to where that I can get off the gas pedal, but we're still going at the same speed, if that makes sense. Yeah. So have you experienced like burnout as an entrepreneur during the time?
Yeah. The thing is, like, the burden, as it were, of the entrepreneurs is you always have that growth mindset, right? Yeah. You always want to be pushing forward and growing. And if you're not growing, then you feel like you're moving backwards, right? True. Because somebody out there is grinding. And so, I have felt that, there have been whole months where I will lie awake at night in my bed, ready to sleep, but I can't sleep. And it's primarily because of work, not necessarily because of training. Uh-huh. That's, I think that's part of it. And this is why we have like vacations, right? Like, And the thing is, like, I will be like, I don't need a vacation. I'm good. And I just keep saying that until I am not good at all, right? And then I'm like, and then I go on a vacation. I'm like, why did I do this like 3 months ago? Like it would have been so much better if I would have done that, because I feel like I lost time whenever I tried to do too much without some sort of break, But, training / grinding, it is injury. It is trauma to your body. Yeah. The improvement does not come from doing those things. The improvement comes from recovery, resting, right? Yeah. Resting is healing. And resting is also whenever you bring a lot of things in, like where you accumulate a lot of the adaptations. And that's when you can accumulate your understanding and construct good meaning from the best practices that you've experienced over that time. But that's the hard thing is, it's that constant feeling of if you're not pressing forward, you're moving backwards.
Exactly. I know exactly what you mean. Just like when I was talking about, I always felt that if I'm not, even when it was like physically working out, if I'm not continuously working out hard, then I'm going backwards. Yeah. Same thing with just trying to continue to have these growth things in mind and continue trying to grow. It's like, hey, if I'm not thinking of new things, or if we're not doing something, then we're moving backwards, which is really not true, but you just think that because you know what I mean? Yeah. We're competitive.
It's a heuristic, and it should come as no surprise that our physical body, our physical development is a symbol of everything else, right? Yeah. And at the same time, like, if you're not developing your physical body, like, you're leaving a big chunk of that behind. If that is a symbol and if that is a model for how you can develop other aspects of your life, then should you overlook it?
Yeah, that makes sense. So, that kind of leads to my next question: balance. Mm-hmm. How do you structure balance? If you believe in balance in any way, how do you structure balance between running a business and your personal life?
Well, I have the benefit of having, two really great business partners. Mm-hmm. And so we can divide up their duties and responsibilities that come with Atomic Athlete to make sure that one aspect doesn't start to become a chore, right? It can feel, we can switch things up and it will be fresh. That I think is a really important part of it. Jake was doing the emails for a while, then I took over the emails, and then And now, because the emails like became a chore for him and he was having a hard time keeping up with them. That is a completely understandable thing. We don't want something that is important as an email that represents, that is the face of the company for a lot of people. We don't want that to become something that feels rote or feels tired or forced. We want it to be fresh, like something that like represents our personality and has a little bit of fun, does it a little bit differently. And so redistributing the duties and responsibilities of Atomic Athlete is a really good way to keep ourselves in balance, so that we're really looking forward to the work that we have to do.
Nice. So it helps you to having partners and being able to structure things to have more balance with. You're talking about taking vacations and stuff like that.
Right.
I will say I have a goal next year to take a 2-week vacation. 2 weeks. I think it's going to be a struggle for me.
Or 2 weeks?
2 weeks away from ATX.
Okay.
I think it's going to be tough for me because for the last 5 years, it's been like everything. I'm talking about vacation, like me and my wife and the kids, we go to the beach every summer for, 3 or 4 days or something like that. And I don't do a ton of work. I scale back, but I still do some. Or my mind's still going about it. I want to be able to take 2 weeks, and I don't know if I'll be able to completely not think about it.
Yeah.
But majority of the time, completely think about something else and don't even worry about it. I honestly think I need that in regards to I need that time to refresh my mind, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, you need to. I mean, I think I think it would be really good for you to have some time where you didn't think about it. You didn't look at your screen, right? You didn't think about the business. Exactly. You're going to think about it. It's going to creep into your mind, but it's having the discipline to be like, I'm actively going to stop thinking about it.
Yeah.
But I think that would probably be good for you. 5 years, man. Without
5 years, I know.
Like a complete break. That's a lot. You'll come back fresh.
Yeah.
Maybe a little annoying. You'll be so motivated. Samantha and Chris are going
to be like,
Daniel, chill. We have been working.
It probably will be.
I bet.
Cool. So, where can our audience find you? Emails, on social media?
Yeah. Email is just really simple, jordan@atomic-athlete.com. We are on Instagram and Facebook at Atomic Athlete for Instagram. Of course, our website, atomic-athlete.com. Let's see, Facebook is Atomic Athlete as well. I'm not on Facebook, I'm not on Instagram, so I don't handle any of that stuff. But
y'all
that's all
are
that stuff. I do emails and I do the site, but social media for me is just like I can't do it.
Yeah,
it's just not for me.
It's a lot that goes into it. No worries, but they are on there. Y'all can find out all about
it.
Atomic-athlete.com website. Atomic Athlete everywhere on social media. Thanks for tuning into Startup Social Podcast. We'll chat with y'all next week.